It's time to introduce our segment, the 100-Day Agenda, and we've got a special guest joining us on the show this evening, the CEO of Cairn Energy, P Elango. Well, let's talk about the energy sector specifically, Mr. Elango. Arguably, the biggest energy policy reform the last 2 years was the gas price hike, which has now been deferred by the Election Commission. What kind of an impact could this potentially have on the sector?
To begin with, I think the sector investment in the sector would take a little bit of a hit because what the sector really requires is more investment, and more investment really would come with a clarity on pricing as such in general. And I really see this country requires substantial investment, both domestic and overseas investment, in promoting gas sector, because one of the things less understood by people is the power of gas to substitute liquid fuel in this country. We are importing large amount of fuel oil. More gas is required, whether it is available domestically, which means we need to get the price which will make multiple gas resources viable to be produced. So from that point of view, I think it's right pricing is required for investment to flow into this sector.
Mr. Elango, do you believe after gas price has been made such a huge political issue, everybody's talking about it, can the new government actually go ahead with it, or is there actually room for review now?
I think there is the question is really about at what price domestically available resources, particularly gas resources, becomes economically viable for development. I think the gas producers, the large gas producers in the country have gone on record that some of the gas resources that has been discovered in the country cannot be developed even at the new price regime. Therefore, it is very important for the country to understand and really trust the industry about the right pricing, because at the end of the day, if a resource is available in your own country, we need to figure out a way to develop it. From that point of view, I would say a review which requires a very large focus on how much more gas can be produced from the country through this pricing mechanism is certainly an important discussion. The second part, I think, which is less understood, is an increased gas price actually results in larger profit petroleum revenue to the government as well. So government need to come with a position on how that additional revenue can be used to address some of the subsidy issues as well. So it's about overall looking at how are we going to address the energy question on the clear policy commitment that every barrel or every molecule of hydrocarbon present in the country would be encouraged to be developed through both pricing as well as other policy reforms.
But let me just turn your attention and focus to the users of this gas, fertilizer, power. The priority sector users have raised issues around high prices that had been fixed as contractors. How do E&P companies like yourselves really intend to manage the price versus the investment argument? Yes, investment has to be incentivized, but there is a cost issue that is involved here.
Today, if you import oil, hydrocarbon as an oil barrel, each MMBTU of oil equivalent would cost you roughly about $20 per barrel, of MMBTU. If you import it as an oil, let's say you import it anywhere between $100 to $110 per barrel, you are importing oil molecule at about $20 per MMBTU. Whereas when you import gas, you are importing it in the range of anywhere between $13 to $15 per MMBTU. What I'm saying is that gas, being a cleaner fuel, available in plenty around the world, and we've got the infrastructure to import as well, is a better substitute for oil. I'm going one step further to say that rather than using it in power sector or fertilizer sector, which is always an option for the country, why can't it be imported as well as developed indigenously to substitute in the transportation sector, where the pricing is not an issue at all, where the substitution opportunity is huge. Then the country has to make a choice, what kind of a power you want to generate. Is the gas is the best source of fuel for power? As long as the existing capacity, we need to make use of gas to generate more power capacity as such.
Let's talk about the other crucial reform that requires attention of the government and everyone's talking about, and that's diesel deregulation. You know, India has taken baby steps towards diesel deregulation, a move that will help private companies to be more active in fuel retailing. But, you know, in your estimate, do you think the diesel deregulation can realistically happen?
You know, my knowledge about the downstream sector is very limited. But within that limitation, all I would say is, at the end of the day, a right pricing for fuel is very, very important to both promote you know, conservation in energy efficiency in its usage, as well as people to recognize the right market price. So at the end of the day, everywhere around the world, market prices have ultimately helped in getting the right balance between production and consumption.
Mr. Elango, before we let you go, this is an issue that has haunted oil and gas players like yourselves. You've been at the receiving end of this. What kind of tax reforms would you like to see in the oil and gas space, considering there's been such an overburden of cess that everybody keeps talking about?
I think in terms of all over the world, the oil and gas industry performs under broadly three regimes. One is the production sharing contract regime, where in a sense the exploration risk is taken by the investor. Subsequently, if a resource has been found, then he is allowed to recover those costs and create surplus which would help in reinvestment. That's the one regime, the production sharing contract regime. Some countries have opted for what is known as a royalty regime, where the cost scrutiny and how much investment takes place in the sector is not goes through scrutiny. It is left to the contractor to decide what he wants to do, how much he wants to invest, and at the production point, royalty is shared through a royalty regime. Third is the countries have gone in for what is known as a service contract regime, where the companies are engaged virtually as a contractor to produce oil and gas for the country in question. If you really any of these three regimes, you really depend on what is the level of prospectivity is seen in the country.
All right, Mr. Elango, we'll leave it at that. But thank you so much for joining in with that perspective